say you're urging, and this is something clearly that Friends of the Earth Germany and I'm sure back in the UK as well is campaigning for. How hopeful are you? Do you think this might happen? Because the messages coming out of the EU seem to be fairly mixed. We had an interesting report from the Commission a couple of weeks back, which pointed out that the fact that the recession has happened might even have made it cheaper. This transition to a low carbon economy might have made it cheaper, but then. Quite rapidly after that, we had ministers from France and Germany coming out and saying, the economy is central, and even if it's cheaper, this is time, and unless other countries are going to move with us. So, are you optimistic that this move is going to happen on Friday, or you're smiling?
Well, that's a problem. The finance ministers are sitting on the money at the moment because they also see the obstacles coming up to them in the coming years because of fewer tax. I think they are very lobbied by industrial lobby, which is trying to keep the price down for emission rights. So they are very influenced by them, and I can't tell if we get it. I'm not totally pessimistic, but I wouldn't bet that we have a move on Friday.
Okay. And I guess if that the question is then is if there's not going to be a move on Friday, I suppose what can people at home do to try and make this happen? Specifically, is there a country that's holding this back? There's been a lot of talk about the US, and Canada said they couldn't, raise their targets above what the US was looking at because their economies were, very closely interlinked, and it would be at a disadvantage. And I guess the EU is putting forward a similar argument, in effect, saying we can't raise our target to 30% emissions cuts unless, other major economies do the same. So where's the room for activism here?
Well, first of all, we are not only having the Environmental Ministers' Council at the end of this week, but we are having later this month a meeting of the heads of states. And that would be another chance to send letters to urge your Prime Minister to change something. On the other hand, we need the push within the US, that's right. The US is holding the entire world hostage by not moving. Everybody refers to the US, as you just said. And we need people in the US to make sure and make very clear that they are supportive of a climate act, that they really want a secure future where the global warming is not going above any of, let's say 2 degrees, which is already quite high. And whatever they can do, writing to senators, writing to Obama himself, would be help.
And I guess at the moment, maybe there is a political space in the US for movement on this subject, because we've got this huge oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico, and there's polls been coming out saying that people, the majority of the population in the US now is against offshore drilling and is actually looking actively for a green future. So hopefully now there's kind of space to create this kind of energy and to get people mobilised in the US, and maybe if it moves forward domestically, then we can be a bit more hopeful about the future, perhaps.
That's true, and actually, I mean, you would solve 2 problems, right? One of our claims is leave the oil in the soil, and that would, you don't burn it, you'd have no CO2 emissions, but if you don't drill it, you have no damages like we're seeing there now.
And I guess just maybe to finish off, why do you think it is, maybe this is an obvious question in some respects, but the talks here in Bonn have had not much international media coverage. The media room where we kind of sit sometimes was very quiet, especially towards the start of this week, and it's kind of filling up a little bit now. Conversely, the Gulf oil spill is on the front page of every paper and website around the planet, and dramatic pictures to go with it. Why are people? Why do people find it so easy to express their concern when this oil comes out of the ground into the sea, and so difficult to express concern when it comes out of the ground and into the atmosphere? I guess you can't see it and you don't have pictures, but it seems to be a link here which just isn't being picked up upon, because I don't think the media have picked up on it and kind of linked between the crisis in the Gulf and Bonn, certainly.
I think that the major problem we are having with climate change is always later than the cause for it. And you don't see a direct linkage. And even worse, CO2 is staying in the atmosphere for thousands of years. So the bad results of what we're doing now are going to be seen in 100 years, and that makes it so there's not this sense of urgency, and that makes it so difficult to campaign for it.
I guess maybe we can hope that the fact that people have seen the destruction in the Gulf and have seen how gross this oil is, perhaps maybe that will help them imagine a future with this being pumped into the atmosphere, and we can hope that that will lead to the kind of more stringent targets that we've been talking about. Okay, Antje, I'm going to let that there. Thank you very much for joining us. It's been really interesting talking to you, and I'll hand back to Anurada and Danny in our UK studio.